All right, ladies and gentlemen, Fab's in the house. And today I've got with me the Real Steel Terra, an inexpensive knife. We're gonna have a look at visual, auditory, and kinesthetic aspects of this knife. So basically how it looks, how it sounds, and how it feels. So let's get started with a real quick size comparison, because this is it's a relatively big knife. I would say it's medium size. This is your large Sebenza 21. This is up against CVV Rustic Gent, and this is against the Benchmade 940-1. So you can see, bigger than the Benchmade, almost like a Sebenza. So nice size. Visually, this knife, it's really interesting. I like the design. It reminds me a little bit, and don't kill me for this, like a Koenig Arius. Just, the profile of the blade and a little bit the handle, a little bit chubbier here and thin here. The construction it's fairly simple, 2 screws with an Allen key, very, very simple. I like, clean lines, so very pleasant to look. You've got, a nice backspacer over here. There's no jimping around, only over here in the blade. Materials used are, a little bit on the cheap side. This is carbon fiber overlaid on G10. So this is not solid carbon fiber, and that's going to reflect on the price. You've got a wire clip. It's nice, with a good spring tension here. Centering, we're gonna talk about that later. This is centered because I tuned it, but there's a little issue here. There's a nice construction design here. They created a lanyard hole passage using this pin over here. So they milled out a piece in the backspacer to create the space for the lanyard hole. So this is very, very interesting design. If you open the blade, you're gonna see, this nice line over here, pretty much all belly up to here, and then just like a, straight edge, very, very small sharpening choil, but it's there. They used 14C28N for the steel in this blade, so you've got a nice profile for the blade. What I really like is the how thin behind the edge this blade is. Sorry, and it's very, very slicey, and with the full flat grind, it's that's probably the best thing about this knife. It's gonna make it for a great user. The stock is relatively thin, nicely crowned in the top. There's no swedge, and the plunge grind, as you can see, it's quite functional. So they did an interesting job. Also around the hole, as you can see, you've got some chamfering going on beside my fingerprints. So when you're gonna deploy the blade, like with your thumb, it's not gonna cut in your fingertip or anything like that. So it's it's nicely done. What I appreciate, strangely, is the logo here. You see there's a little nicely designed skull on this side, and it's subtle, so I appreciate that. Not really a fan of branding like on the presentation side, but this touch, yeah, I dig it. If you hear the noise, this is it's running on washers. It has 2 washers per side. So a steel one up against the liner, and the phosphorus bronze up against the blade. I don't know if you can see, they're kind of like sandwiched. So they give, I would say, an overall not super smooth action to this one. And the noise, you're gonna hear, the rubbing of the washers up against the scales and the blade. When you open the knife, it locks, like up to like 40%. So it makes a nice sound. It's, nice, acceptable. It's nothing like to write home about. but at the same time, it gives you like a little bit of a cheap feel when you hear this sound. When you close it, there's just, you know, very subtle, and the magnetic effect is gonna be like from this height, kind of like over here. So it's not like sucking the blade in. Yeah, so you can try to flick it open with your thumb, so it's gonna open. But the point is that you're gonna need Loctite for this one, because this came like this, but if you can see, like I can use my fingernail and just unscrew the pivot, all right? So of course, if you unscrew the pivot, as you can see, the blade is gonna be uncentered. But the point is that with my fingers, I can just like tighten like this, you know, using my fingernail into this groove like that. And I can just tighten like the pivot up to this point where I cannot even open the blade. It's like very, very stiff. You need like to like pull, and I mean, this is not good. And the blade, you know, you can tune with your finger. Look at this. You can tune it. So it's not ideal to me. It can be fixed, you know, with some Loctite. So if you center the blade like kind of like this, then you're gonna have a little bit of blade play. So construction wise, this is not the best. Like when you feel in the hand, the handle, the blade, this knife, there's like a couple hot spots. One has been being created by this corner here, which is gonna dig into your finger, and the other one is here. The relief, it's good to disengage the lock bar, but it's sharp. It's jimped, as you can see, so it's sharp, and it's gonna dig in your index finger, at least in mine. So I'm not a fan of this, of the feeling that I get by squeezing the handle. It's not pleasant. It's a little bit slippery because of the finish over here. So, you know, it can slip. You don't have like too much grip. So another thing that I'm not in love with about this one is that the construction, it's like this. So it's not rigid. So you can clearly see that it bends the liners and the scales. So it's not an ideal construction over here. It's bad because I like the design. You know, it's an inexpensive knife. It's a good user. It could be a nice beater, but construction is you know, letting me down a little bit. When you open the knife, you know, you have since it's running on washers, you don't have like an awesome feeling. You can still flick it open if you tune the pivot and you Loctite, so you can do that. The action is not fast. You can probably do like a spidey flick. So it's usable. It will never like you see, there's no guillotine effect, no free fall. You have to wiggle it pretty strongly. So overall, like, you know, opening and closing feeling are okay, I would say. And there you have it. So this was my review of the Real Steel Terra, and hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.